それ噂じゃない。
Was that a fucking Jojo reference?
Alright, I'm talking about Jojo. This is gonna be either fun or the exact opposite of fun, whatever that is. Jojo's Bizarre Adventure it's a classic manga. I mean, it barely needs an introduction. It's a classic manga. Right up there in the pantheon, Dragon Ball and One Piece and Naruto and Kinnikuman Man and all the others. It's great. It's wonderful. Jojo is the story of the Joestar family line throughout history as they endeavor to fight evil that they come across. Whether they know it or not, that's generally the plot of every single part. Because this is a, episodic saga. Episodic? That's probably not the right word. Best word I can think of right now. Every part tells a different story. Every part has different themes and elements and settings. Hell, characters are completely interchangeable between parts. Well, not interchangeable. Characters are changed for every part. That's what I was trying to say. Now, this video is much more about me trying to digest Jojo. Trying to put my thoughts out on figurative paper. It's less me trying to change your opinion and more me just trying to give mine. So, if you will, I think it'd be best to give a brief overview of every part of Jojo so far. Part 1 is basically a gothic horror story set in the 1800s, where Jonathan Joestar fights his evil stepbrother who has Machiavellian machinations against him. His stepbrother, Dio, eventually finds an antique ancient mask which has the magical ability to turn him into a vampire. Throughout this whole thing, Jonathan gains the ability to use Haman, or basically he breathes sunshine. Throughout this, he fights Dio and ultimately he wins. Part 2. Joseph Joestar is the grandson of Jonathan Joestar. It is the eve of World War II. And this story's basically Indiana Jones. Exotic locations, ancient artifacts, a lot of cool stuff. And hell, the main character's kind of a roguish guy like Indiana Jones. The villains of this part are the Pillarmen, who are basically Cthulhu vampire eaters. They're the guys who made the artifact that turned Dio into a vampire. Yeah, so you know they're pretty bad dudes. Part 3 is set in the 1980s. It's a road trip movie. As much as a road trip as, a trip to cure the main character's mother of an illness. The main character being Jotaro Kujo. This part is also the beginning of stands, which are basically semi-physical embodiments of the user's own will and psychic energy. Every stand is unique and every stand has a unique ability, whether that be punching things real good making it interdimensional pocket, erasing space, creating sounds, giving life to inanimate objects. There's a variety of powers. So Jotaro, his grandfather, who is Joseph, their best bud, Avdol, another friend, Kakyoin, and a person they meet along the way, Jean-Pierre Polnareff, go along their way to find the bad guy in Egypt, who happens to be Dio. Dio is back and better than ever. Part 4 takes place in the late 90s, and it's a murder mystery. Yeah, really going in a completely different direction genre-wise. It takes place all in one small, sleepy little town called Morio. All the members of the cast, and they try to figure out who is responsible for these long string of murders. The main character in this part is Josuke Higashikata, as he learns to deal with his stand, other stand users, and hell, just life as a teenager. The bad guy this season is Yoshikage Kira, basically evil serial killer David Bowie, as he basically is the one responsible for all the murders all these years. And most of the fun of this part is seeing all the almost got-ems throughout it. Part 5 is set in the early 2000s, I think, and it is a mafia crime story set in Italy. Again, this is another mystery, because the main characters, and specifically our Jojo, Giorno Giovanna, are trying to figure out who the leader of the mob is, because, well, no one knows. As they go up and down Italy, the mob boss sends his goons after them to try and stop them from solving this little conundrum. Part 6 takes place in the late 2000s, at least I'm pretty sure it does, and it's set in a mixed-gender Florida prison. Florida. Again, this is another mystery, and our main character is the first female Jojo, Jolene Cujo, the daughter of Jotaro Kujo. This is the part where stands get really weird and really abstract, which I love. Like, literally, there's a dude who can control rainbows that make people think they're snails, while simultaneously making people's DNA think that they're actually snail. It's weird, and I love it. It's great. The villain of this part is basically a priest named Pucci, who has some unknown connections to, who to guess, Dio. Part 7 is the beginning of a brand new universe for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which many people typically call the Speedball Run universe, considering that Part 7 is called Speedball Run. Again, we are now in the 1800s, but this time it's not a Dracula story, it's a great race across America. And we follow the main character, Johnny Joestar, a former jockey and current paraplegic who's trying to find a way to walk again, so he can reclaim his old life. Throughout his journey, he'll gain more than just the ability to walk. He'll gain friends along the way. The villain of this part is a man named Funny Valentine, who is literally the President of the United States. All throughout the journey across America, many racers find strange, mummified body parts that they call corpse parts. And it turns out, Funny Valentine wants them. Part 8 is again in modern day, and again in a town called Morio. It's a different Morio though, because an earthquake just happened and revealed multiple monoliths throughout the fields. And in the dirt is a man with a gap, strange, unusual eyes, a tongue split in two, and 4 testicles. This man has no idea who he is, no memory of what he is, but a girl finds him and strangely smitten with him and calls him Josuke. He's adopted by a family called Higashikatas, so this character's named Josuke Higashikata. With no memory of who he is, that's the main thrust of the story. Trying to figure out who he is, why he is, and why he has the abilities he does. Why can he do anything that he does? At the time of making this video, this is the most current part, so there's not a ton of things I can really, spoil or do anything. Hell, I don't even know if there's a main villain yet. But those are the main stories of JoJo. So what are the main themes? Well, part 1 is about brotherhood and friendship, and the acceptance of companionship. See, Dio rejects his humanity, and thus rejects society as a whole. Rejects the whole concept of it. But Jonathan? He does the opposite. He goes to a known criminal hangout and impresses a gang leader so much that he reforms his way and becomes his best friend, Robert Edward O. Speedwagon. This becomes massively important because he creates a foundation called the Speedwagon Foundation that helps many a JoJo later on in the series. And it's all because of that one unique friendship. Part 2 is about preparedness, both in terms of being prepared and the unprepared aspect of life. Throughout this whole part, we're shown how Joseph planning can ultimately lead him to victory, but over-planning, overestimating his ability to plan can ultimately lead to defeat after defeat, and only by letting go and going off the cuff is he able to finally beat the main villain. In fact, overly planning is what can cause friends to die and anything because you're inflexible. Something that Joseph learns and takes with him into part 3. Part 3 is all about the lengths someone might go to save someone they love. See, throughout the beginning of the series, we see that Jotaro acts really cold and basically like an asshole to his mom. Calls her bitch, the whole 9 yards. But the minute she's sick, the minute that something is causing her pain, Jotaro goes nuh-uh, and goes on to fight what's ever causing this insufferable pain to his mother. Part 3 is all about the lengths people will go to save someone they love, and about the lengths someone will go to achieve power to fuel narcissism with Dio. So it's kind of a neat parallel. Part 4 is about how community can come together to fight a darkness that just looms over them all. By working together, they can fight it off. And by giving a welcoming hand to those who may not be a part of the community yet, like Rohan, who is a recluse celebrity mangaka, or any number of people that they fight, and welcoming them into their group of friends, they are able to overcome Kira through, well, honestly, numbers, and just variety of people going, no, you can't kill anymore. Which is also evidenced and seen with the number of hands that grab Kira at the end of the series. Part 5 is about morality and the law, and how they're not always necessarily the same. Crime families have often been weirdly portrayed in media. They're seen as criminals, but there's also like a strange romantic vigilante bent to some of them, and that's kind of what this one's going for. It's much less, hey, we're gonna do crime, and much more, hey, we're doing crime, but we'll keep it away from the kids, and if anybody fucks up, well, you know who to talk to. It's also about self-realization. See, something I didn't mention earlier, Giorno Giovanna is technically the son of Dio. Yeah, that's a weird, convoluted, bullshitty comic booky thing, but yeah, he's the son of Dio. And so a lot of this series is about self-realization on his part of becoming a Joestar. Well, he doesn't know it, but becoming a Joestar, and that self-realization extends to Trish, who realizes what her father is, and, well, realizes who she is, and becomes a part of the group. It's nice. Part 6 is about righteousness from the sinners. See, all the main characters are technically in jail. Some of them for, well, very good reasons. But ultimately, they are the good guys because, yeah, they're in jail. Yeah, they committed crimes, but they ultimately know right from wrong. And when they see someone doing a massive amount of wrong with Pucci, they stand up to fight. Part 7 is about rebuilding oneself into a better person. See, Johnny is a paraplegic, and he is trying to find a way to walk again, but it's not because he wants to walk, it's because, well, he was disowned. It's because he craves that fame he once had. It's not because he wants to walk, it's because he just doesn't want to be a paraplegic anymore. But throughout the series, he learns and grows himself as a person to the point where he doesn't need to walk, because he's just a better person in general, and in a much better place than when he started off. And several other characters are about that too. Hell, there is a complete stand whose only ability is just to make you really confident in yourself. And even Euro Zappelli is about abandoning an identity that was wrong for him and coming into his own as a new person. Part 8 is still about identity, but it's more about who you are and not about building it. Part 8 is also about how morality relates to your identity. Is because if you don't know who you are you still in the wrong? If you don't know who you are, can someone still punish you for a crime you may have committed? Or punish you for a thing that they made up on the spot? See, Jojo has a lot of interesting themes that it's just there, and I don't see many people talk about it. But what I also find fascinating is if you take some of these themes and some of these parts and put them together in unique ways, you get interesting stories. Like part 1, 3, and 6. It's all about the story of Dio trying to become more than human, but only succeeding after death. Only succeeding in becoming human after he's finally no longer, which is a neat sense of poetry to it. 2, 3, and 4 are all about the downfall of an intelligent man, of Joseph. You see him in his prime at 2, and then you see him be a wise elder, imparting knowledge and wisdom onto the next generation. Well, the next generation in part 3. But in But in part 4, he's almost a shadow of his former self, almost as if he gave too much of that wisdom away and didn't keep enough for himself, and it's a tragedy. If you take parts 1 through 6, it's all about just family lineage, how you interact with your family and your elders, and how they influence so much about your life that you don't even think about. Parts 1, 2, and 3 are all about the initial plan of Dio, his life, his beginnings and ends. It's all about that. All the intricate parts of what makes Dio Dio, including the Pillarmen who create vampires. Parts 4, 5, and 6 is all about the aftermath of that, all about the response of that, with the number of stand users in 4 being because Dio gave away an arrow, with 5 being part of that arrow, and literally Dio's son becoming a hero, becoming his own man, separate from the idea of his father. And part 6 literally has Dio's plans fully come into fruition with Poochie. And ultimately, it's the aftermath of what Dio has done that affects these 3 parts. And parts 7 and 8 and maybe 9, depending on what it's about, so far it seems to be about finding your own family, picking it, and choosing who you are as a person. Of course, until part 9 comes out, this is kind of more conjecture at the point, but it's a possible idea. And what I'm trying to get at is Jojo is deep and complex and has a weird, surreal, wild world to be in, but that wild, wild world is laid atop a bedrock of excellent story writing and thematic elements, of classic Greek art in modern fashion, and a love of pop music and rock and family. That despite all of this, you gotta remember one thing. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is the story of the Joestar family line. JoJo is a story about family, about fathers and sons, about grandfathers and grandsons, about a father and daughter, or about a brother who just can't get along with his other brother.
Hello, thank you for watching my video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I would appreciate it. If you did all the YouTube stuff, you know what to do. If you want to see more of just things I make, you can follow me on Twitter at Boingo_writer. You can also go watch the podcast I make with a friend on Modular Media on YouTube. Link to that will also be in the description. If you want to join my Discord server, link to that is, again, in the description. And quick little shout out to the Vacuuminator for giving me that audio for the little opening gag. So, again, hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you do all the YouTube stuff. And until next time.